All right, I want to bring our panel tonight, and we are joined by Jeannie Zaino. She can speak to the issue of life on campus here as a professor of political science at Ona College, as well as a professor of campaign management at NYU. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, of course, and Andrew Whitman, senior political correspondent. And Jeannie, I'll start with you. When I saw the numbers, 1 in 5 women say that they're either assaulted or raped before they walk off campus for the last time. I did a double take. The numbers maybe surprised you, but you'll anecdotally pick up on stuff, I assume, just being around campus life. Has this been a problem for a long time that we're finally just getting our hands on, or did people not realize the depth of it?
It's been an enormous problem. 1 in 5 women that are dropped off at a college campus and freshmen and so excited to be there will be sexually assaulted, and only 12% apparently will report. And so, you know, this has been a problem. You can go back decades. It has been the unspoken problem at colleges and universities. And the fact that the Obama administration has taken this on is an enormous step forward. This is really a Title IX issue. I think many people think about Title IX as an issue of sports, you know, equal sports for men and women. No, Title IX says you are all guaranteed equal education regardless of gender. And if women are, 1 in 5 women are going on campus, and we should note that men are sexually assaulted as well, but if 1 in 5 women are going on campus and being sexually assaulted, they are not receiving what they are required to receive under Title IX. So it's a violation of Title IX, and that's where the Obama administration is able to make these recommendations and to make some headway on this thing and at least put it into the light, because that's what so many of the students have been asking for.
You know, like these guys, I read the Times story this weekend who put human faces on it, women brave enough to come forward. And not that any of this condones it, because I thought there was a tone-deaf comment that I ran from Manhattan Institute where they said this isn't about sexual assault and rape, this is about people getting drunk here and basically not knowing how to control their social mores, all right? So let's take that as just being idiotic. But that said, the vast, vast majority know socially their attacker. In some cases, they even had a prior consensual relationship and then turned into something much different. I'm not giving the colleges a pass on this, because it seems that a lot of times they were negligent, in fact, in some cases even, that they wanted to look the other way. That said, when you mix in alcohol and consensual relationships and then unwillingness at times for the people to come forward until sometimes a year later, it is hard to secure prosecutions in the real world, let alone college campuses in these cases, right?
It's absolutely difficult. And, you know, absolutely alcohol and drugs play a role in this without question, but that doesn't excuse the response of the administration of these colleges, right? You know, you have to deal with both of those problems.
Is the problem, Jeannie, that this should be going straight to the cops, but the colleges are ill-equipped middlemen, or what is the problem on the collegiate end?
There's so many problems with it. There's not often safe places for victims or alleged victims to go, and so many will not report. There are victims who have been drinking, who know they were sexually assaulted and won't go because it's against the rules of the college to, you know, be drinking, absolutely. So there's so many myriad of problems with this. But the point that the Obama administration is making is that colleges can and should do better to guarantee women and men. We can't forget about the male victims, but women and men students on the campuses, a way in which to report these alleged crimes in a safe way without feeling like they are either going to be re-victimized. And that's what's often been happening. If you listen to some of those stories that you mentioned, you know, there's a re-victimization that occurs that's often, in many victims say, much worse than the original,
that they actually have the courage to come forward, and then what happens
they are treated by their favorite college. I mean, you think about these freshmen, these are young kids, 18 years old, they come to college so excited to go to Berkeley or so excited to go to NYU or Columbia, wherever it is, and they are victimized not only by a student on the campus, but they are victimized by the administration in terms of not taking their report seriously. And that's where you see this kind of re-victimization occur.
And you know, Dominic, for me, I read the story and I couldn't help but thinking, in a few years, I'm going to be dropping off my daughter as a freshman. We're going to be meeting the dopey roommate or whatever. We're going to be hauling up the trunk and everything else. And then you're going to turn around the car and you're going to head home and you're going to cross your fingers that the judgment will be there, but also that they're safe. You did that trip, right? It must be, when I read these numbers, I put down the paper. I said, oh my God, yesterday.
Let me just tell you, Richard, you know, you're sensitive to the situation, but boy, does it change your perception of this massive problem as accurately described by the professor. boy, does your perception change when you are a father of a daughter. And for example, you know, when you drop her off up at Syracuse University and you look at, not to say that this only occurs in fraternity houses, but up at Syracuse, they have a row of houses that go for blocks and blocks and blocks. And as a father, you know the amount of drinking that went on in these frat houses and the things that go on in these frat houses, and you're like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And you just pray and hope for the best.
You know, Andrew, I read the report that the White House put out, and a lot of what they're going to do is they're trying to focus on the front end of it, and the preventative measure that everybody acknowledges the college education that goes on of this in the beginning is ridiculous. But I don't know, wrongly maybe, I thought kids at 18 know right and wrong. When it comes to no is no. That said, do you think more attention, if there's limited resources, should be on preventative education on the front, or making it really clear that there's going to be federal prosecution or federal involvement of the colleges if you guys are negligent without fully pursuing this in a full-throated investigation if somebody has the courage to come forward to you?
I think there's a lot of value in pressuring the colleges, whether it's with criminal action or civil action, and you know, a few cases of that will whip a lot of colleges into shape. No college wants that kind of exposure or the damage to their reputation. I also think a lot of pre-orientation, a lot of preventative measures can go a long way as well. Orientation lasts a day or a couple of days, and as well as we prepare young people for the college environment, it's still the first unfettered taste of freedom that a lot of young people get, and making sure they know that even in safe environments, dangers lurk. And also the social aspect of it too, making it more acceptable to come forward and say something has happened, making it uncool to go too far in a situation where perhaps you shouldn't.
And you know, to that end, Jeannie, I remember there was in a freshman orientation, this is going back many years, but they had a group to openly out a male and a man and a woman who talked about tolerance or whatever on college campus. And I was like, okay, you know, no big deal. The amount of people in the room, this was the first gay person that they had ever seen. And that the questions, I was like, my God, what rock did these people live under? But this was their opportunity to ask. I think maybe I underestimate just how developed these 18-year-olds are, even when it comes to sex and everything else, that they really don't know, or they don't know the consequences, I guess, sometimes of their actions.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Andrew mentioned, for some of these young people, this is the first time they've ever had the freedom of living, you know, essentially by themselves. Now, there's certainly rules and guidelines when they're in residential living facilities, but, you know, it's the first time they've had that kind of freedom. And for many of them, it's a very difficult, that freshman year is a very difficult
we're all
year.
idiots,
And, you know, on behalf of the college, I should say, one of the difficulties they confront is that often the alleged culprit and the victim are both students of that same university and college. That is not easy. As a former administrator, that is not easy to handle, because you want to be able to give somebody the, you know, the understanding that they are, you know, innocent before proven guilty. And by the same token, how do you handle a victim? Many colleges need education, which is so important about what the Obama administration is doing, about how to do that best. It is not an easy track to walk, and the victims become re-victimized. And we've seen cases where there are alleged, you know, people who have committed these acts who turn out to be innocent. And so that is a real minefield for these institutions.
Well, when we come back from break, we're going to stay on college campuses, but a much different conversation and debate. After a lot of protest, former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice declines an invitation to deliver the commencement address she was asked to deliver at Rutgers. All too often, we've seen angry students get their way in these kind of fights. Are universities encouraging intolerance? We'll get our panel into that when we come back.